The landscape of college athletics is ever evolving. Who better to discuss those issues than the director of Penn State Athletics? Sandy Barbour is on this edition of For the Record.
The Commonwealth's attorneys and I have concluded that the NCAA sanctions were overreaching and unlawful.
Someone's got to develop a product that you and I as a consumer are going to want to buy.
The country needs a comprehensive energy plan.
Good morning and welcome to this edition of WHVL's For the Record. We are pleased to be joined by Penn State Director of Athletics, Sandy Barbour. Sandy, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
We hope this is the first of many appearances here at WHVL, either here or on our blue-white tailgate set with the world-famous Steve Jones. First question, though, you were the athletic director at Cal. How does Cal compare to Penn State?
Well, I mean, they may as well be as different as East Coast, West Coast, as by their locations, but they also do have a lot of similarities in terms of both great academic institutions with really, really passionate fan bases. But I also think you can point to things like 107,000 people in the stadium on a Saturday afternoon in Beaver Stadium and a capacity of about 65,000 at Cal and Memorial Stadium. So I think those differences right there lead to a lot of other differences just in terms of the intensity of the passion for Penn State, 650,000 living alumni, and just the everyday and consistent passion and appreciation for Penn State athletics and particularly Penn State football.
This fan base has, some would say, unattainable expectations. How much more pressure does that put on you to have a successful athletic department?
Well, it does put more pressure, there's no doubt about that, but I think if you talk to James Franklin or you talk to any of our coaches or anyone who is a high achiever and wants to come to a place like Penn State and bring on this expectation, we welcome that. We welcome that expectation. That's what we want, and that's what we want to strive for, and that's what our plans are every day. And all the pieces of the puzzle put those together to achieve the kind of success that not only we want personally, not only we want as an athletic department, but what we want on behalf of our alumni and fans in our community.
What have your interactions been like with the fan base? Because anyone who's in a position like yourself or Dr. Barron, there's always a fluctuation. It was like that when Dave Joyner was the athletic director. It was like that when Tim Curley was the athletic director. Everyone experiences highs, everyone experiences lows.
Well, my experiences at Penn State have been phenomenal. Everyone has been really welcoming. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have an opinion about something or want to make sure that I understand that this isn't going well or that this is. I think that's probably one thing about Penn State fans that I've noticed is a lot of other places it's all around the negative, what's not going right. I have experienced, I think, a very balanced approach from the fan base that's very appreciative about the things that are going right and certainly want me to know how they feel about the things that aren't going well.
Before you came to Penn State, what were your thoughts of Penn State before you got here, say pre-2011, and then your thoughts maybe during that 3-year stretch before you got here?
Well, I grew up an East Coast kid. I'm from Annapolis, Maryland, and so really had a very high level of interaction with Penn State, if you will. I played field hockey and lacrosse. I coached field hockey and lacrosse, so we came to State College to play. And I certainly had an appreciation, I said it in my press conference, for Penn State football and the place it occupied, not only in East Coast football and Mid-Atlantic, but also nationally, and who Penn State was. Certainly Coach Paterno and the leadership role that he played in the NCAA and his reputation for caring more about the guys and their education and their character than necessarily the wins. But the great part about it was not only did he graduate kids and have a high character young men in the program, but won a lot of football games too. So for me, Penn State was a place where you could have it all. And that's always been the reputation of Penn State for me. Certainly when when the Sandusky scandal hit, for me, at that point in time, I'd been in this business about 30 years, and I think each and every one of us, if we really thought about it, in leadership positions across the country in athletics, could say, therefore, by the grace of God, go any one of us. And I certainly told my staff that that could happen to any one of us, and I believe that without knowing a lot of the facts at that time. I think these are really difficult jobs and complex situations. You're responsible for a lot of people, and it's to me, it's how the university and how the athletic department responds. And I think today, the evidence of who Penn State is alive and well, and success with honor, high character student athletes who go to class and graduate, engage in the academics, and oh, by the way, win more than their share.
I think a lot of alumni would agree with you. One of the alumni sticking points is, even though the consent decree was tossed out, the academic integrity, the athletics integrity monitor remained kind of a point of contention with a lot of alumni. Do you think that maybe that's an overreach, and maybe the dangers of running an athletic department, such as a bureaucracy in Washington or Harrisburg or something like that?
The athletics integrity agreement and the monitor don't bother me one bit. We're going to strive to do the right thing every day, 24 hours a day, and if I've got somebody there with another set of eyes and ears and ideas to help me with some perspective, I'm fine with that. I certainly understand from a looking back and thinking about Penn State and Penn State going through this really difficult situation. I understand the objections, but from the standpoint of every day helping Penn State to get better, I think it's nothing but a positive thing.
The one thing that we're going to talk about coming up is the athletic department. What do you feel is the biggest challenge right now facing the Penn State athletic department?
Well, I mean, our purpose, our why is about creating this fabulous world-class student-athlete experience. And, I think what I lay awake at night thinking about is, how do we resource that? How do we make sure we have the ability to create all of the conditions for success, whether they be provide them with the very, very best coaches, which I think we have an incredible coaching staff across the board in 31 programs, or whether it's the right scheduling or the right travel or enough recruiting resources to go out and get the very, very best young men or women. Facilities certainly are a huge part of what we do. So I would hesitate to say that our financial situation, and I certainly would never say money, is the number one priority, but it's creating this world-class student-athlete experience through which a community of 650,000 living alumni and a local community can connect through those student-athletes and that experience. And then how do we resource it? How do we afford it? 31 sports is a lot of sports. 31 sports, 850 student-athletes. It's a large program. A lot of folks are only trying to support 450 and 17 or 20 programs.
We'll get into those resources in just a bit. Stay tuned. You're watching WHVL's For the Record. Welcome back to For the Record. Sandy Barbour in studio right now, Penn State Director of Athletics. And Sandy, we left off talking about resources. That's the lifeblood of any athletic department across the country, whether you're in Division II, whether you're in FCS football. Penn State was once the top 2 most profitable athletic departments in the country. Over the times, those revenues have been decreased. How do you go about getting those revenue streams back up?
Well, I mean, there are a number of different factors on our revenue streams at this point, and certainly over the course of the last couple of years. One is direct impact on the $60 million fine, the lack of access to our Big Ten bowl revenues over the course of the last 3 years. So those are big hits to today's budget, and obviously the $60 million fine will continue to impact our budget for the next 30 years in terms of the way we're going to go about paying it. Others have been, if we've had decreases in revenues from football attendance, and so the other two are going to come back. The bowl revenues will start again in 15-16. Obviously, we'll pay the fine over time. We need to sell more tickets. We need to come up with different ways to create revenue streams. But all of those have to be by providing value to our fans. Value to our fans, value to our donors, present a very compelling case for support to our philanthropic community, and that's going to take work. That's going to take a lot of listening. That's going to take James Franklin and us working with James Franklin to make sure that the football program we put on the field is one that our fans want to come see. And that's where this passion that we talked about earlier obviously comes in very, very handy, in that there's a lot of connectedness and a lot of passion for our football program. But we can't take that for granted, that fans are just going to show up and are just going to buy tickets. What value do they derive from that?
Speaking of that value, I actually had a phone call recently. It was, did you know Florida State just scheduled Alabama and Auburn? Well, of course, those games are way down the road. You don't know what type of programs they're going to be, but it's safe to say they're going to be quality. The same person said to me, we have Buffalo and San Diego State, and I know that's pre-year time here at Penn State. But how do you draw the line between wins, getting people in the stand, and then having a schedule that could compete, say, for a national championship at 12-0 for the college football playoff, or maybe 11-1, because of this schedule this year, a lot of pundits would say, well, Penn State's 11-1, but that non-conference schedule doesn't stack up.
Well, scheduling in college football is a really complex art and science. And you mentioned one part of it that is a challenge as you're putting together the schedule. You're trying to kind of look in your crystal ball in terms of your scheduling. Our next opening, I think, is like 6 years out. And so, what's a particular team going to be like 6 years out? Well, you don't know. You have absolutely no guarantees. So some of it is you're looking back at history, you're trying to predict the future, but you're also looking at the name. And then it's a combination, it's a balance of what part of the schedule are we putting together for the growth and development and success of our football program in terms of wins, and what part of it are we putting together with a nod of the cap, a tip of the cap, to our fans, and maybe what they want to see and what they see as a valuable contribution to the season ticket package. The great news for us is, as a conference, we're playing 9 conference games. That guarantees you a certain strength of schedule, a certain quality there. Now, maybe not necessarily, again, what the fans would want to see for some of those. And so then where do we need to top that off with a marquee game of the kind that you're talking about there, in combination with, obviously, in any particular year, we're going to play Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, Iowa in Beaver Stadium or on the road.
It's definitely a balancing act, and going back to the tickets, when STEP was introduced years ago, that ruffled a lot of feathers. Now there's ticket packages of recent grads get a discount. That used to not be the case. There's now different levels. Alabama, for instance, has 9 levels of their STEP program. Penn State's at, I believe, around 4 to 5. Where's the balance of trying to keep the current fan base that has the season tickets happy because they're your bread and butter and your donors, to trying to attract the new fans at certain price points?
Well, I certainly, I very heavily believe that we need to privilege those that have been with us for a long time and who have stayed with us. So I think that will always be a principle. But at the same time, how do we drive new fans? And we've had some success there. Last year I believe it was upwards of 5,000 new season ticket purchases. How many months out? 6 months out now from the start of the season. I think that's about where we are now. So we're seeing some success there. But again, to me, it's all about examining, and we're going to have to talk to our fans to learn this, because it's not what we tell them is valuable. It's what they tell us is valuable to them. So we're going to have to talk about what's valuable, and obviously we're competing against the 50-inch high-definition television as well.
Talking to the fans, I don't think you'll have a problem getting an answer from this fan base because we do know that they're very vocal.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. But the challenge is that there is no one answer. Absolutely, I would think we would get answers from every one of our fans that we would ask. But then how do we take that and synthesize it and pull it together and come up with how we move forward?
Moving forward, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the challenges facing the NCAA. Where is the future of college athletics? And maybe a reinvestment into the Penn State basketball program. Stay with us. You're watching WHVL's For the Record, back right after this. Welcome back to WHVL's For the Record. Penn State Director of Athletics Sandy Barbour. And Sandy, we left off talking a little bit about the direction of the NCAA. What do you feel are the biggest problems facing college athletics today?
Well, I certainly think one is reputational, and obviously that hits very close to home here at Penn
Just
State.
a tad.
But yeah, for a variety of reasons, and again, it's not just the Penn State situation, but the NCAA, the national office, I should say, because again, the NCAA is us. I mean, it's a membership organization, but certainly a lot of what, if nothing else, have been perceived as missteps, and we're in the throes of a reorganization, a new governance structure. We're being challenged legally on a lot of different levels, and I think I think the biggest challenge right now is for us as a membership to get on the same page and frankly tell the leadership in the national office what we want. And we've never been there.
Some of those things that you may want. Freshmen, should they be ineligible again? Should scholarships be 5 years? The likeness, speaking of the O'Bannon case out in California, what is it that you could say is we definitely have to do to maybe these are some things that will happen down the road?
Well, again, and for those that know me, absolutely no surprise, the things that center around our student athletes' ability to receive the education that's available to them on their various campuses. Penn State, Eric Barron, Sandy Barbour very much have no interest in freshman ineligibility across the board. It's not necessary, and I'm not sure it has the impact that people think it's going to have. The concept of a year of readiness, what does that really mean? Now, having said that, what are the things that we absolutely do need to address? Time demands. What are the things that are keeping student athletes from either getting prepared or keeping student athletes from having the ability to truly engage in the education that's before them? So what are the things around numbers of contests in a particular year, missed class time, time demands on a particular day or a particular week? Does their season lapse over 2 semesters? Is it a dual semester sport? Those kinds of things are the things I absolutely think we need to look at that have direct impact on every student athlete on a daily basis.
I will say this, talking to many members of the football team, hockey team, basketball over the years, they always seemed, no matter what was going on in the NCAA, their one answer that was always consistent was Penn State treats us very well, and not one ever had a complaint on any subject whatsoever. The future of football in America, concussions are always a hot topic. It is that way right now in the NFL with the retirement of Chris Borland. Do you see that maybe as inhibiting, not only athletic departments' bottom lines as the future goes forward, and maybe even the sport of football at the collegiate level?
Well, I think it's about the sport. I think it's clearly about the sport and about taking care of the student athletes. What is the state of the art? What's the best practice in terms of not only head injury care, return to play decisions that obviously play a critical role, but also prevention. What are we doing from the standpoint of equipment? What are we doing in terms of this from the standpoint of the rules of the game? The NFL, obviously, from a rules standpoint, has changed some things that they think will help with injury. So I don't believe that we'll ever stop playing the game of football, I do think education is really, really important. I mean, the people that say I would not have my son play football, well, you know, what is it they're basing that on? As long as they're basing it on facts that are correct and that's the decision they want to make, that's fine. But I believe that we can make the game of football safe. We've just got to be smart about rules and equipment and safety, and then, you know, you could sustain a concussion, obviously tripping off the curb, but what are the then treatment and return to play decisions? And frankly, a lot of great research on a lot of that is, I'm very proud to say, is going on at Penn State.
Changing gears a little bit, it is that time of the season, so we'll talk a little bit of basketball. Coach Pat Chambers rewarded with a contract extension. The future of the basketball program, if we look back through history, they've had ups, they've had many downs. Where do you find that spark to maybe jumpstart this program to get the Jordan Center up to capacity?
Well, I think Pat Chambers could be, is that spark. And that's one of the things I love about him is his energy, his passion, his fit for Penn State. You know, obviously I arrived on campus in August and was hit immediately on Twitter with, you know, extend Pat, which I appreciate. I appreciate the passion, but you know, that was not the right thing for me to do immediately without having done my due diligence, which I did throughout the course of the season. I love the way the student athletes respond to Pat. We were close. We were oh so close this year. There's nobody, you know, certainly Pat and I would tell you that our record this year is not where we want to be, and it's not acceptable. We have to see progress from that. We all agree on that, but I think it's there. I think it's in the pipeline. The recruiting class that's coming in is our highest rank ever in our history. So I think all the signs are there, and I believe that Pat certainly earned the extension, deserves the support, and then we've got to do things around him. He can't do it himself. It's not just about the student athletes that he puts on the court and how he coaches them, but what kind of environment do we create around the program? You know, is men's basketball as important as any other around here? And then what do we do from an environment in the Bryce Jordan Center standpoint?
Sandy, thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching WHVL's For the Record. Stay up to date on all topics ranging from the Penn State Athletic Department to world topics in the Middle East. Thank you very much. Have a great day.